Let me get some lighting on here. Uh, it's the early February 2024. Uh, this Doc Tom Talk is going to be extemporaneous, and it's going to concern uh, the situation in Palestine uh, as we find it today. Um, I'm going to begin with my perception of uh, what is the relatively recent history of that geographic area in the eastern Mediterranean. Uh, there is now a nation there we call Israel. Uh, Prior to 1948, that area was known as Palestine. Um, After World War One, Palestine, which had been around for centuries, it became a British protectorate. In other words, the British controlled the region. They allowed Jewish people to immigrate there ad libitum as they wished, and set up a quasi state within a state. There had been an Israel in the past, uh, uh, over 1,000 years ago, just as there had been a Persia and Roman Empire. But there had been no Israel for well over 1,000 years prior to 1948. A brand new nation was allowed to be born in 1948, and the Jewish settlers that had settled in Palestine basically kicked out the people who lived there, the Palestinians, forcing them, most of them, out of Palestine completely into surrounding areas. And the Palestinians then became a diaspora, a people without a nation. Some, less than half, moved into the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which then became renamed Palestine. So that's where Israel and Palestine of today came from. The Israelis dominated both the West Bank and Gaza, not actually granting them the dignity of being a nation of their own. They became basically like a reservation for the former inhabitants of what was previously, prior to 1948, Palestine. The Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip were completely dominated by the new Israelis, the Zionist people that had kicked them out of their former homes, confiscated their lands, and relegated them to the reservations now known as the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. As has happened, for instance, here in the United States with the Native Americans that were dispossessed of their land holdings and moved onto reservations, if it turned out that there was something that the dominant culture wanted that was on the reservation. Uh, we here in the United States just took it and moved the Native Americans to some other more desolate and less desirable location. Um, well, that's what happened in the West Bank of Palestine. There were nicer areas where they had nicer views and better access to water and more fertile ground, and so therefore the Zionists just took those areas and made settlements, Jewish settlements in the West Bank that were reached by private roads that were controlled by Israel. And the settlements were basically gated communities, and the settlers that settled in these settlements rejected the former owners of the property and just seized the property and made it their own. Um, the idea, the justification for all of this was biblical, the Old Testament biblical, from the Talmud and Torah. According to the Zionists, the Jewish people that are Zionists, not Jewish people as a whole, but those that believe in the interpretation of their scripture that God gave them Israel, Ersat Israel, all of Israel. It was given to them by God historically, and it extended historically from the shores of the eastern Mediterranean all the way over to the Tigris and Euphrates River, where we now find Baghdad. So that included Jordan, most of Syria, Lebanon, and a large part of Iraq, and so the justification for Israel in the first place in the minds of the Israelis is that it was given to them by God, but it is not confined to the limits that are now the boundaries of Israel, which, lies, borders Palestine and Jordan, Syria, Egypt. So the justification that made Israel of today Israel is in the minds of those Zionists justification for taking the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and ultimately those other areas I have just mentioned. What is happening today, the reduction of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, with its over 2 million residents, into rubble, destroying their infrastructure, making the area unlivable, is just part of a greater plan to get rid of those few remaining Palestinians, Arabs, Semites that live there. The same justification can be used for the eradication of all of the non-Zionist living in the area now, the West Bank. So what we're seeing is not a retaliation for what happened on October 7th, which was a horrible event, possibly a false flag event in that Israel knowingly lowered its defenses, allowing radical Islamists to create havoc, and then using the havoc created by the absence of Israeli military in the area as a justification for the reclamation of these other geographic areas that are now called the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It's a sham. There were maybe 1,300 Israelis and others that were killed in the raids on October 7th of 2023. Well, there have been over 10 times that many innocent civilians killed by the Israeli forces in their destruction of Gaza. The Israelis have committed serious war crimes. They have destroyed hospitals and schools, the electrical infrastructure, the sanitation infrastructure, the potable water infrastructure in Gaza, and so far have destroyed more than half of the dwellings in the northern part of the country as the destruction continues, and the people of Palestine are driven into basically refugee camps where they have no access to adequate sanitation, inadequate food and water, and are exposed to the elements. There is no justification for the actions of the Zionists in what has been called by many in the United Nations and even within the Security Council of the United Nations, nothing less than genocide. If it were not for the support of the United States, Israel would not be a strong nation. The Zionists here in the United States have significant political power and have used that to force the United States citizens as taxpayers to provide Israel with weapons of mass destruction. Israel owns many nuclear weapons, and with the military capability to annihilate their neighbors, such as they are doing now in Gaza. The blood of the Palestinian women and children and civilians that have been needlessly slaughtered by the Zionist Israelis is on the hands of us, of my hands, as a U.S. taxpayer that has supported the military buildup in Israel and profited from it, because much of the equipment used by the Israelis is made in U.S. firms, and the over $9 billion a year that we supply in the form of military aid to Israel is $9 billion that come out of the tax coffers that working Americans pay into. We, the American people, are duty bound, have a moral obligation to do whatever we can to stop the slaughter of the innocent Palestinian people, and to force Israel to compensate the Palestinian people for the incredible damages that they have rained down, or incredible damage they have rained down on the innocent people of Palestine. Uh, this Tom Talk is basically a plea for us, for conscientious Americans to do all that we can to stop the slaughter and restore the sovereignty of what remains of Palestine. My own personal belief is that there should be a single nation. You could call it Israel-Palestine or Palestine-Israel, but just a single nation solution, and that area should become democratically controlled by the people that live there, and that they should be able to determine their own future, as we do to some extent here in the United States. We should not support the slaughter of innocent people anywhere on the planet.